So Mark, we're here. The rest of the community's gone out and we've got a few moments to ourselves. And this is an important time in the treatment program because you're coming towards the end of your phase 1, which is the first 30 days.
Yep, I can't believe that it's almost been 30 days that I haven't used anything.
How long has it been since you haven't had a bet or a drink in 30 days?
The day before. The day before I came in.
Yes.
I stayed with a friend in Melbourne, and I did have a bet and I did have a drink, but not for the last 30 days. So from the day I came in, well, obviously.
Fantastic. And this 30 days, you've been in what we call intensive rehab, which is literally 24-hour care. You've handed over the management of your day-to-day life, literally hour by hour, to the program here. But let's backtrack a little bit. How did this come about that you came to the Hader Clinic?
Well, I tried psychologists, I tried psychiatrists. None of that seemed to work with any of my addictions. And in the end, to be truthful, even though I was actually functioning and doing a lot of really good media training and showing an extraordinary outwards version of Mark Aiston, which is very confident. Internally, I was in chaos. I was in hell really, and it got to the point where my routines for the day, if I didn't have any work on, were a complete disaster. So I guess just even basic life skills, obvious things like getting up at a certain time, making your bed. I know that sounds ridiculously over the top, but even little things like that started to stop. Cleaning the house, because my whole world was just spiralling.
You mentioned the functioning addict, and it's a term that we hear quite a lot. From my experience, the functioning addict normally describes a very resilient person that's able to drag themselves to work every day, put on a face, but other than that, almost every other area of their life is falling apart.
Well, that's exactly where I was. So if I had a job to do where I was speaking to some CEOs and helping them with their, advising them on some media skills or whatever it might be, that mask would go on. I'd do that magnificently. They'd shake my hand and say, fantastic. And then, of course, as soon as I'd leave, I'd be a mess again. So that's exactly how it was. Everything around any major responsibilities from a work point of view were totally neglected, totally.
So that describes the logistics of your life that were, other than work, were falling apart. You weren't able to do the basic things. But what sort of feelings were going on internally for you during those times?
Well, I mean, I'm 61 years of age now, so if I didn't know then that I had a problem, I'm talking prior 30 days here, then I was never going to know. So I knew I had a problem. I knew I had a major problem, and I was worried that my time was going to run out. And and because I've got maybe 15, 20, max 25 years left, I didn't want to waste it, but I didn't know what to do. I had no idea what to do, and my very best mate and my sister Kathy had a meeting with me.
Describe that. Was that at your home, at Kathy's home?
It was at Brad's home.
Brad's home.
And
so your mate Brad says, "I'll come round." Did he?
He just said, "Come round." He said, "We'll go out for something to eat."
Yep.
And he said, "Kathy's here," because Kathy does a bit of gardening and stuff for Brad. And he said, "Anyway, but you and I." But of course, when I got there,
that was a setup.
Yeah, it was a setup. Yeah. So, but it was a good setup. And we did go out for something to eat, and then we spoke for about an hour, and we decided to take the course of rehab, which, when I first started betting at the age of 14 and drinking and smoking dope and all that sort of stuff, if you had said to me back then, in the end, at the end of all of this, you're going to be going to rehab, I would never ever have believed you. So they said, why don't we try something? And obviously we looked around, and in the end I decided to come here down to Geelong.
Was it an emotional meeting?
Well, it was, because part of me was still in denial. I mean, part of me didn't like being told what to do. So yeah, it was.
It's a common thing with addicts, that we don't like being told what to do.
No, and my sister and I hadn't connected for a long time, so that's one of the great positives of all of this. But yeah, it was an emotional meeting, and
because both your parents have passed on, have they?
Yeah, they have.
So your sister is your family unit.
Yeah, I've got a brother.
Obviously, your kid. Oh, you got a brother.
I've got a
well?
brother, and yeah, Rob, and he's been very supportive, and you know, and my daughter. But but at the moment, probably my sister and my best mate are the two that were most worried about me. And yeah, it was emotional. There's no doubt about that. There was a few arguments, you know, a few raised voices, but in the end, I understood that something had to change. And I mean, I'm not saying that was the absolute moment, because it was a week or so later that I was able to get in here.
But it was certainly a catalyst to put things in motion.
Absolutely. And I really, there was no getting around the fact, Jackson, that I was a complete mess internally. I mean, look at me when I go down to the coffee shop taking Jack, my beautiful dog, who, by the way, I miss enormously.
I just bought a puppy recently. I was going to bring him today, but I thought it might upset you too much.
Yeah, there'd be tears. There'd be tears, and I'd probably steal him.
Yeah. So what I wanted to ask you about was that moment where you're sitting with Brad and you're sitting with Kathy. We often describe that as where the two worlds collide. There's the Mark Aiston that you want the world to see, which you're putting on the show, and the real Mark Aiston behind, which is struggling, hanging on by a thin thread, whose world is falling apart. And we often fight really hard to keep them separate. But at that moment where they come together and you're confronted by two people that you love and trust, and all the facades come down, you're confronted with the truth. Mark, we know that everything's not okay. Mark, we know that you're living a double life. Things need to change. Was there a feeling of relief? Was there a feeling of confrontation? Describe that moment, because it's often very difficult. Yeah, well, as I said earlier, I think there was a lot of confrontation and a lot of tension actually while I was there. But once we dispersed and Kathy went in her way and Brad went in his way and I went in my way, I went back home. Once I'd made the decision to do something about it, I did feel relief. I felt as though there was, you know, I guess it's a little bit like, you know, when I went public with my mental health issues a number of years ago. That was a bit of a load off my shoulders, not the full load. You know, there's still a shitload of bloody load on there. But yeah, I definitely felt relief, and I definitely felt as though I had sort of just said, hey, you got me. You know, you got me. There's nothing I can say now that's going to convince you guys that I'm going to be able to continue this life. And then I was saying it to myself as well. I was saying, and that's really important, because we often tell ourselves for years and decades, I'm okay, I know what I'm doing, I'll be able to work my way through this. And what you're describing is that moment where you admit to yourself, I can't do this, I'm going to need some help. Yeah, and also too, a lot of other mixed emotions, because you start thinking about the what ifs. You know, if I had done the right thing, I'd still have my job at Channel 10. If I had done the right thing, I'd still have my marriage, etc., etc., etc. But I did quickly push those to one side. That's the guilt, shame and remorse that all us addicts feel. Which often drives us deeper and deeper into our addiction, because we want to medicate those feelings of guilt, shame and remorse. Yes, absolutely. And that was very emotional for me. But as I said, I didn't hang on to that for too long, because after a while, and once we got things organised here, I guess I just started committing, and you know, I've just started doing the steps, the 12 steps, but you know, which is more commitment, obviously, and the true commitment. But no, I definitely felt as though I was ready to try something else. So that's about 6 weeks ago. I get an email, just as I normally do at work, at an inquiry. I give you a call, describe the program, and you decided pretty quickly. You were on a plane within 3 or 4 days. I was, and I was very grateful that you were able to get me in. I'm down here at Geelong. There's about 18 people in here now. But when I got here, there was only about 7 or 8. But no, we had a good chat. I was at the park walking Jack, and we had a chat for about an hour. And that was a very emotional chat for me. I noticed that you didn't do a lot of crying, but because you know, and there's no point in me trying to con anyone else, particularly someone who is involved in rehab at the level that you are. So I was very grateful for that, but I was also grateful that you were able to get me in so quickly. And I was also very grateful for the hour that we had. It was almost like sitting down with someone who has been through what I've been through. In fact, it was, really. So you've been literally here at the Geelong facility for near enough 30 days. I think it's about 28, 29 days. in this 24-hour care program, which is the intensive introduction to recovery.
Yeah.
So you've literally been involved in a program from 8 in the morning till 10 at night.
Absolutely.
7 days a week.
Big routine.
Yeah. What's been the biggest surprise to you?
Well, the routine. Well, in terms of surprise, I guess I said routine quickly. Then I guess what I mean by that is all of a sudden I'm back to a routine, whereas I wasn't before. I mean, I mentioned making your bed. You know, you don't get up here and leave your bed or your room a mess. When I left home, my room and my bed was a mess. So that's the start of our routine, and it's the start of being responsible. It might feel and sound as though it's not to you, but it may sound to a lot of people that that's a really small thing, but that in part gets you motivated. And then of course you go for a morning walk, and then we do check-in. And for those who don't know what check-in is, it's which is hard, because you've got to sit in a circle and tell everyone how you felt in the last 24 hours. Now you can bullshit again. Mark can put the mask on and say, yep, everything's fine, but everyone knows it's not. So that's been a hard process. But in terms of the day, I think one of the great things about this rehab and presumably other rehabs is that there is structure, and I didn't have structure. So that's been a surprise to me, but it's been a pleasant surprise.
Because you can go to a board meeting and fake it for an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah, no problem.
But here,
no, there's no faking.
24 hours, a routine, therapeutic groups.
Absolutely.
You can't fake it here 24 hours a day for 30 days.
Well, no, you can't, because, I mean, you've been there and done it, and the staff here have been there and done it, so they're addicts as well. So they know. I mean, they know when you're bullshitting, you know. I mean, we're in Keflay's office at the moment, and he's the local psychologist, as you know. And, I've had 2 or 3 meetings with Keflay, and there's been a number of times where he's looked at me and said, now, Mark, you're not telling me exactly what's going on. And it takes us another 10, 15 minutes, but we eventually get there. But it's a hard process.
Because for decades, I would imagine, and certainly myself, when you're not going okay, and people ask you how you are, it just becomes a reflection and go, yeah, I'm good, thanks.
I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm good, I'm fine.
Yeah. Doesn't do anyone any good.
No.
I mean, having said that, and perhaps this is a discussion for another time, but when you're on the outside world, you don't feel as though you want to burden other people with your problems. You really don't. And so you're right, you default to good. But here, we're making breakfast, and someone will come up and I'll say, hi, how you going? And they do tell you, and then I listen, and then I support, or vice versa. So it's like a little bubble in here.
It's quite an intimate experience.
It is, yeah. I mean, it's tough. It's nowhere near as, well, I'm not saying I thought it was going to be easy. It's a lot harder than I thought. I mean, I'm so looking forward to my 30 days. I'm 2 days off, you're right, 28 days. But it has been really difficult, because you're out of your comfort zone. But when you're back home, when you're in your own world, you don't necessarily push yourself, particularly with your emotions. You just let things plod on, and all of a sudden you're 61 years of age, and you've got all these major issues that have built up inside, and they're not being released. But in here, you do release them. You're forced to release them, which has been a really good thing for me.
So what are some of the things you've experienced that is fair to say you may have drank on in the past? Anxiety, depression. What's come up for you in the last 30 days that we've had to help you deal with in another way other than drinking?
Yeah, look, that's a really good question. My anger.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not physically angry. I don't physically get involved with people. That's never been my go. But when I'm feeling down, really depressed, I get quite agitated. I take things really personally.
Hypersensitive, we call it.
Totally. I get paranoid.
Yeah.
You know, as soon as I saw you turn up today, I thought, oh God, what have I done wrong? Not really. So I guess just on those 2 issues, and also letting go. I mean, one of the things
becoming obsessive on things.
Oh, totally. So I guess it's only been 28 days, and this is a lifetime thing for me. I understand that, but when I was at Channel 10, if my boss criticised me in any way, and he was fantastic, so he'd do it in a really, really good way, I'd still go, oh no, what? And I'd argue, and I'd get annoyed, and I'd stamp my feet, and and I'd get on the phone to my mate Brad or someone and say, I'm so pissed off, I just got told off for this, and I'd spend a couple of hours on that. So I guess not taking things personally is something that I've learned to start to deal with.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm going to say I can do it now.
Because if we've got this hypersensitive nature, which most of us addicts do, the world can be a very difficult place to navigate.
Oh, it's tiring.
Because people are just interacting with us as you're describing your boss in a normal, constructive way.
Yes.
But you're so sensitive, you leave that meeting really hurt.
Totally.
Yeah.
And he doesn't give it another thought.
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't.
Because
I'm the one that gives it a thought
That's
for
right.
2 bloody hours.
That's right.
Which is a complete waste.
And then you obsess on it, obsess on it.
Totally. And then
Yeah.
you're exhausted.
Then you're exhausted.
Well, and also too, then you go home and you take it out on your partner.
Yeah.
Or your wife, or your husband, or your daughter, or
And
your
have a
friend.
drink.
Well, and of course have a drink, or in my case, and have a bet, you know, or smoke a bit of dope, etc. Which is unacceptable.
Yeah.
Totally unacceptable. I can see that now,
But that was your way of dealing with negative emotions for decades.
It was, and without being critical of the media, I don't think being on TV, whilst it was good financially for me, Jackson, I don't think being on TV was good for me. Thinking back, in those days, I'm not saying I wouldn't like to do it again, but I'd have a different view of it now. But in those days, because I had to really fix that mask on really strongly, I had to bolt it on. Because you can't be seen to be flat when you're about to do sport.
No.
You can't be seen to be flat when you're about to host a function for Channel 10 or 5AA when I was working for them, or Mix 102.3. You've got to be up and happy and everything's going great in your world. So there's even more pressure. And people look up to you, you know, which I feel a bit embarrassed about. And people get to know you when you're in the media. So they expect you always to be a mentor and someone who's going well and has got a lovely house, nice car, nice family, no problems. That's bullshit. That's crap. So I had to really, really bolt that mask on every single night for 30, 33, 34 years.
And of course, seeking that adulation or validation becomes part of the illness as well, because that's a feel good as well.
Yeah, it is, and I think that being a people pleaser, you know, has fucked me over completely. To be truthful, I mean, I can think back to many a time. I mean, most of the time I did mean it, but if I said something good to someone, quite often I'd be looking for their validation back. That's what you're talking about, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah.
In other words, it really wasn't about them; it was about me. So if I said something to someone, I'd be hoping. In fact, I can go a step further. I'd be hoping that they'd say something nice back to me. But if they didn't, I'd get pissed off.
It hurt.
I mean, what the hell? I mean, you know, how ridiculous is that? And again, that's tiring because then I wouldn't let go of that. And,
so we're seeking to change our feelings through alcohol, through gambling, through validation from other people.
Yep.
And these are all temporary fixes.
Yeah, as it's turned out.
Yeah,
As it's turned out.
you get to feel good for a couple of hours, a day, but then the following day we're back to square one.
Totally, yeah.
Which is this man who's incapable of functioning emotionally, self-soothe, constantly looking for externals, and the behaviour becoming more and more and more and more and more to, as you said before, you find yourself at 61 and it's just not working anymore.
Well, it's ridiculous. I mean, I don't feel like a man. I mean, I you know, I've improved since I've been here, but it's a long journey. But I just don't feel, you know, and I haven't felt confident in particularly the last 2 or 3 years in any way, shape or form.
Did you have I know towards the end of my years, in the last few years, I had a tape on replay in my head that was, you're a loser, you're a loser,
Yeah.
you're a loser, you're a loser, you're a loser.
Well, you know what my tape has been saying up until recently, which is pretty harsh criticism, but I have felt a bit of a fraud, particularly in the media. I feel as though, you know, everyone's saying, "Oh, you're such a nice guy, and don't you present well, and you know, didn't you do that well?" And you know, there were times there where I thought, "Oh, I don't know whether I am a good person, or I don't know whether I am a great presenter or a good presenter. I don't know whether I did do that well." And as a result of that, I started to feel as though I was sort of conning people, which is not a good feeling. And I think I might have told you privately, but when I lost my job at Channel 10, when it all happened, I got so many wonderful text messages from all the staff saying, "Oh, Mark, we're sorry to hear you go, you know, as a result of stress, etc., etc." And I felt like I felt as though I didn't deserve any of those. And in fact, I did ring the general manager of Channel 10 and I expressed that. I said, "Mate, they're nice messages, but I don't know whether I deserve that because I let the team down. I fucked up badly." You know, and that made me feel more like a con man or more like a fraud than ever.
Because as you say, when you're 14, 15, you're at the racetrack with dad and you're having a few bets,
you're
having a good time.
Yeah.
It's not your plan to end up...
No. I can promise you my plan wasn't to end up sitting here talking to you. That's something personal.
Right.
I can promise you.
Yeah.
But
when did it turn, Mark? I mean, I don't lie to people. You know, the first few years of my drinking and drugging, they weren't all bad. I had some good times.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Well, I love what I did at 14, 15, right up until probably 27, 28.
There you go.
I
So
loved
that's the
it.
question I was asking. So about 27, 28, you can look back on it now with some hindsight and say about then you could look back and think the wheels were starting to wobble a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, without any doubt.
That's 34 years ago.
I know. It's a long time ago, isn't it? I know.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be fair to say. I mean, as I said, when I was 14, I started gambling at 14, smoking dope at 14, drinking at 14, and I loved it. I lived for it. And, you know, I used to go to two-up games. I used to go. I was a bookmaker's clerk. I started calling races.
Yeah.
Got into TV at that sort of age, you know.
Boyhood dreams.
Fantastic, it was really good, but I love the other stuff I did. I lived for the races. That was probably my most significant addiction, certainly my most expensive. But they're all damaging, they've all been damaging to people and situations. But yeah, no, I loved it, I lived for it, Jackson, for a long, long time. But you're right, you know, 26, 27, but I still didn't do anything about it.
No, of course not. No.
I didn't do anything about it.
We talk about, we look for treatment or we look for other alternatives when we're in enough pain. When the fear of facing ourselves becomes less than the pain of our current existence. And we can often be very resilient. And it sounds like for 30 odd years you were very resilient, despite your addictions, despite what was going on internally. You managed to have a family, have a marriage, have a career in the media, do a lot of things.
Yes.
But internally it was slowly but surely deteriorating to the point at 61 you're in the park with your dog talking to me, having a cry.
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't understand why it took me so long. And I fear in some ways, I know we digress slightly here, but I fear for some of the young ones here because I mean, we've got young ones here, as you know, who are 23, 24 years of age. I mean, that was when I was right into it, and there was no way if someone had said, this is going to be a problem for you, you need to look. And those kids, they've got 40, 50, 60 years left.
I agree with you. For young people that have the courage and the humility to come into treatment at a young age, I have the utmost respect for them. Even the ones that might struggle, because we're asking them to grasp something I couldn't even consider grasping until 36. You're 61. And we've got these young, literally kids.
They are.
23, 24. And my theory around that is that the drugs these days, ice, some of the party drugs are just so much more potent.
Absolutely.
They're bringing these kids to their knees quickly, whereas old bulls like you and me could stay it there on the booze and the punt for 20 years.
It's a good point, still doing damage,
but
getting through.
Getting through.
Oh, well look, one of the, without being specific, one of the things that has affected me here is that, I mean, as I said to you at the start of our chat, I don't have any. Do I want to have a bet? No. Do I want to have a drink? No. Do I want to, do any coke, or do I want to,
act out in some way?
In some way. Do I want to do that? No. Now, I understand I'm in the bubble. I understand that. But no, I don't. And I'm so determined. And I guess in a way, going public with this is putting more pressure on me. I understand that. To keep off and to fix myself and to stay clean.
Well, of course, but let's just call it what it is. And when the danger is, that you go through this process, and then in a month's time you're in the pub and someone takes a photo of you pissed. Yeah, absolutely. And you look like a dead set goose.
Well, totally. And where does your credibility go then? Having said that, I can't guarantee that's not going to happen. No. I can't sit here. I mean, if you know it, you can't ask. And you know that if you ask me, will I ever use again? You know that the answer from me has to be no. I can't guarantee it.
And when you say use, you're just so for people to understand, you're talking about not having a drink, not having a bed, not having any illicit drugs.
Absolutely,
and not engaging, replacing it with a shopping or sex addiction or anything.
Absolutely.
Like that. You're talking about attempting to live a life of recovery where we don't engage in these addictive behaviours to change the way we feel.
Absolutely.
And looking internally through therapy, recovery meetings, and literally trying to live a completely different life.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh, there's no doubt about that.
And you're 28 days in.
I'm 28 days in, yeah. And you're right, the life that I want to lead, and I'm not quite sure how long it's going to take, but the life I want to lead is going to be totally different to the life I've ever led, really.
It's
which
huge,
is quite frightening.
It's huge.
It is.
Yeah,
it is.
It's huge. Yeah.
In one breath, I say I can't guarantee that I won't go back to any of those addictions. But in another breath, I do say that I am extremely committed, and now I'm starting to understand a bit more about when you're off all of your addictions, or whatever the substances and all your crutches, when you're off them, you can actually fix in here. So I'm starting to understand that more, and I've got so much more to fix in here. I've got 4 things that I'm addicted to. If I can keep off them, then I'm a chance to fix all these other things, which is going to mean that I may not really appear different to people, but certainly from within, I'm going to...
You do, Mark. You don't even realise, and we never see the change in ourselves. You're different to 28 days ago. You're different to the person I met. And I just want to clarify...
I feel different.
For people that might be watching, when you say, I can't guarantee, I don't want people to think that's a backdoor or a get out. What that is, what I hear from that is an appreciation for the gravity of what you're trying to achieve.
Absolutely. It's enormous, isn't it?
It's not a backdoor.
No.
It's saying, hey, I'm doing my best.
Yeah.
I'm giving this a crack.
Well, I've been doing what I've been doing now I'm 61 and I started at 14. What's that, 46 years? It's a long time. Long time to be doing stuff that is affecting you to this point where you've got to go to rehab. So I know it's not going to be an easy road, but by God, I really want nothing more than to get well, because I'm sick to fucking death of going through this. And again, I don't say
sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Oh, and I don't, and I know this is a bit of, I'm apologising a bit, and I tend to do that too much as well. But I don't want people thinking, Mark said that because he wants us to feel sorry for him. I'm just explaining how difficult this process is. A, how difficult it is to make the decision to come here or go anywhere, any other rehab centre, and B, to do 28 days has been fucking hard. And
I heard a speaker on tape once say that at the age of 40, there was absolutely nothing in his history to suggest there was any possibility of him getting sober.
There was nothing in, just say that again, there was nothing in his history.
There was nothing in his history to suggest there was any possibility that he was going to get sober.
Right, okay.
And when you look at our histories, mine also, my drinking and dragging for 20 years, to actually get sober.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Yeah.
It's a dramatic change. But you've got another change coming up.
Yeah, I have.
You've done 30 days here.
Yep, we're about to be,
Yep. And part of our program is we do 30 days, 24-hour intensive work.
Yeah.
And then we move back into Melbourne into what we call phase 2, which is still a full-time recovery program.
Yeah.
You've got a timetable from morning till night, but you've got some independent movement. So you'll be able to grab a coffee at the local cafe between sessions.
And you get your phone back, you get your communications back, which has been hard.
Yeah, you've been cut off from the world for 28 days.
That's another really difficult thing. We get a couple of phone calls on a Sunday.
Yeah. So, for example, that last video update we did, which was...
terrible background.
Nearly a terrible background.
Did you notice the chords were in the corner?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. We literally filmed that, pressed send, and then you didn't look at it again until about half an hour ago.
No, that's right.
So you've been cut off from the world.
Yeah. Well, I looked back at it half an hour ago and I thought, my God, surely we can put a surely we could put a nice painting in the background.
Right. So we stole that from Kefle's office. Reminds me of George Athanakis between two ferns. But anyway, so on just so people know, we're sitting about an hour and 10 minutes out of Melbourne at the moment.
Yeah.
In Geelong. We're moving back into Melbourne on Monday or Tuesday.
Yep.
So you're back in the metropolis.
God, I am looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I'm so pleased it's not near Crown Casino.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the other side of town.
That's right.
Yeah, but you'll be able to talk to your children most days again. You'll be able to talk to your friends. And get reconnected that way. And you're going to spend somewhere between another month and 2 months there. We'll work it out as we go along.
Yep. So I'm gathering that you know, there is more freedom, but at the same time that probably means there's more responsibility. So if you're in town having a coffee and you know that you've got a meeting to go to, you're not going to have as we have here, someone running over to you, one of the staff saying, hey, on the couches in 10 minutes. You've got to be more responsible.
What's going to happen is we're going to find out how you're going pretty quickly. Because in the past 28 days, you haven't been unsupervised. You haven't walked past a pub. You haven't walked past the TAB.
Good point.
You haven't had an hour to yourself where you could probably duck off and get away with it. No one will know.
Yeah.
Right. So there's some dangers that come,
Yeah.
and we're going to find out how you're going pretty quickly.
Yes.
And that's the purpose, rather than just spending 90 days in 24-hour care and then shipping you back to Adelaide and wishing you the best.
That wouldn't work.
We want to bring you back into Melbourne, and we want to see how you're going by literally opening up a little bit and see how you go. And you may do wonderfully, or you may come and say, you know what, I'm not ready.
Yeah.
I obsessed about going to the tab today, and I could have got away with it. I think I need to go to Geelong.
So I hadn't thought, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of it in that way. That's a very good point. And there's pubs there. There's an opportunity to go to the races. That's a very good point. There's opportunities to do whatever you want.
Correct.
That I was doing back in Adelaide. Yeah.
So we're gonna find out how you're going, and it'll be a new experience for you.
Yeah.
And that's on Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Today's Anzac Day.
Anzac Day. Yeah.
When was the last time you didn't have a drink on Anzac Day?
Well, when I was 14. No, when I was 13.
That's
Back
right.
then I didn't know what Anzac Day was, so...
So we call this the year of first.
Yeah.
This is your first Anzac Day without a drink.
Yeah.
Like your first Christmas without a drink. Your first birthday. You'll be invited to your first wedding. It's the year of firsts.
You know, one thing that I feel really, really bad about, and I know I'm going back, but is, just the amount of drinking I did on Christmas Day with the family. I think back now to just how stupid that was, and the reason I did it was that it was there, and I feel embarrassed about
when
that.
I was drinking, I would always ask if I could be on the drinks trolley at Christmas because I remember.
Good thinking.
Because you could just drink, and I remember clearly one Christmas. And this interview's not about me, but I was living in Collingwood, and I heard toot 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 toot, and it was Mum picking me up for Christmas Day, and I was in the toilet on the bottom, bubbling away, and I looked in the mirror and I put the eye drops in. Had to drive from Collingwood out to Surrey Hills, and then as soon as I got there, I got on the drinks trolley, and I was powering them down.
And you look really responsible.
That poor chap's a lovely boy.
He's on the drinks trolley.
Yeah, that's right. Isn't he a lovely boy?
Yeah.
But you had to mask it somehow.
Yeah, I know.
And the amount of ducking and weaving we used to have to do.
Yeah, and as I said,
exhausting.
it's tiring, and I'm sick to death of.
Yeah.
So you didn't make me cry, man.
It's all right.
Yeah. But I'm sick to death of it.
Yeah.
Really, I am. I'm absolutely sick to death of it, and if and I'm looking forward to going to Essendon.
Yeah.
I really, really am, and there's we go from here, so there'll be others that I'll see there that I've known from here.
Right.
And by the way, the other thing I'd say is that it's a great community here, and everyone is very, very supportive, and there's been some friendships made. Now, whether we see each other outside of here in Essendon, who knows? But it's almost impossible not to make friends here because we're all in each other's pockets.
This is the most radically life-changing experience you will ever have. It's intimate and it's personal. You will make friends through this process. You'll make one or two friends that will be lifelong friends.
Yeah.
Other people you never see again. Other people you might not like. Doesn't matter.
Yes, that's fine.
But this is like winning a footy premiership.
Yeah.
You'll bump into people down the track that you went through rehab with, that you went through this experience with, and you always share that deeply personal experience because this is, not to sound too evangelical, but this is radically life-changing stuff. Yeah,
there's no doubt about that. And the other thing that I've really enjoyed, by the way, and maybe we can talk a bit more in detail about this separately, on a separate video, but is going to the NA meetings, the AA meetings, Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, and I went to one of those in Adelaide. I can remember I went to one in Adelaide about 12 months before things started to fall apart, and at the end of it I went straight to La Trappe, which is my favourite restaurant in Adelaide, and got pissed. So that didn't really work all that well.
No.
But one thing I have really, really enjoyed, and they buoyed me, are the shares, the stories that people in those groups, when we go every night, as you know, sometimes we do 2 a day. The stories that people tell about what their lives were like before, my God, I thought mine was a mess. You know, we're talking really heavy stuff. At the same time, we're talking just a house, not just, but a housewife or a father. So, you know, all the stories are different. But the stories of hope, I must admit, have given me a lot of hope as well.
It's a bit of that, if they can do it, I can do it.
Yeah, very much so. And I often, if I can, we catch a couple of buses there, but and generally we have to leave fairly quickly afterwards and come back here. But I like to talk to some of them one-on-one, because there's been a number of times where I've turned up really flat and quite depressed. And again, I think that's part of the process, and I think that's because I'm not using anymore.
Well, you're raw now.
Yeah, totally raw. And I'll ask them, I'll say, hey, how were you the first 30 days, 28 days? And they'll talk to me about it. And I said, look, I experienced this. And I said, I'm experiencing that as well. And it sort of makes me feel as though, again, I'm not alone, and that's maybe all part of the process. So they've been invaluable.
All right, well, let's catch up again next week when you're in Essendon.
All right, yeah. Thank you. Thank you again.
No, thank you.